Welcome to our first video blog of 2011. What I wanted to talk about today was how we performed in the fourth quarter. Then I wanted to go on to speak a little bit about the recent undulation and rotation in markets and how we responded to that, and go on to talk a little bit of some of our potential concerns this year. And then finally I wanted to update you on our more general view on European markets. So starting first of all with the fourth quarter, we had an exceptional period, one of our strongest ever, and with all of our mandates significantly outperforming the index. And there were really two important effects for us. Firstly, the fund, as you know, is very concentrated on super quality international growth. And that is really under three guises. First of all, best quality international industrial companies, and names such as companies such as Rexel, Legrand, Accor, Fiat and Beat performed extremely well. Also our more internationally orientated technology companies such as Software AG, ASML and Amadeus performed fantastically well. And finally, and perhaps most dramatically, our luxury goods companies with significant exposure to the emerging markets performed spectacularly in the last quarter, and in particular LVMH, Swatch, and more recently Pandora. So the first thing, the positive side, was our portfolios, as you know, have been very much focused on best quality international growth, and this area of the market performed by far the best. The second part is we've had virtually no exposure to banks throughout the year. The better quality banks which we owned, like KBC and Swedbank, we sold because we felt they'd come to a full valuation, and the weaker ones we cut our positions in Banco Popolare and Credit Agricole because we felt that there were potential capital adequacy issues which have since come to light. So going on to now the recent undulations in markets and how we responded. It's been quite an unusual start to the year, with really very much the same trend in markets over the first few days. Best quality international growth performing extremely well, and the converse of that has been banks, pharmaceutical companies, utilities performing poorly. And we've seen a dramatic turnaround in this in the last few days. It's very difficult to tell at this stage whether it's as a result of something more sinister, or whether it's is more just a reversion to mean, a temporary blip, with some profit taking in best quality international growth, and a little bit of a catch up in poorly performing domestically orientated companies. As I said, it's a little bit too early yet to tell whether it's something more sinister and real underlying the shift. The potential risks are, of course, China, a slowdown in China, which would have a significant impact on international growth companies. And the other risk, of course, is the dollar, American fiscal profligacy, some stage being reflected in the value of the dollar. So in the short term, what we've done is, and we were doing this anyway, was we cut back on some of our way overperforming, more cyclically orientated international companies. And so we sold our positions in Air France, in ASML, in Fiat Industrial, and we cut back some of our Pandora. At the same time, we found one or two opportunities in the peripheral part of Europe, which has performed terribly, and combined also with areas of the market which have performed poorly. So we bought a large new position in Banco Santander and a large new position in Atlantia. So we changed about 15% of the funds before the rotation started. So for us now, the decision is whether there's something more sinister happening, and we have to look very closely at China and the dollar, and to see whether we want to cut back further on some of our very strongly performing companies last year. And at the same time, we want to look again very closely at some of the poorly performing areas of the market in 2010 to see whether there aren't some great opportunities. And so far, as I said, we've discovered Santander and Atlantia. So that's just a few words on the recent undulations and turbulence in the market. And then finally, just to update you on our more general views. As you know, we've reiterated this month after month, but we have generally a rather positive view. We think the corporate sector is performing much better than expected. and that's driven by strong EM growth recovery in Europe, and at the same time dramatic cost cutting by many of our companies. We think valuations are still very cheap on 10 times, and the more and more we look at the cycle, it seems to be proceeding in a rather predictable and normal fashion. What I wanted just to spend one moment talking about today was the whole question, of course, of the stability of the euro and the possibility that the euro could break up. We think it's highly unlikely, and what we'd emphasize again is the power of Germany, the miracle that is Germany, and it is something which has been consistently underestimated by commentators over the last year or so. And then the point, just to estimate, is post-reunification, Germany went through a dramatic restructuring process, a period of great productivity improvement, driven mainly by wage restraint, and it's meant that Germany has built up a significant competitive advantage against the rest of the world and against, indeed, the rest of Europe. And this, of course, has been further exaggerated by the weakness in the euro. The other point to say is that post-reunification boom, there's been a period of profound and deep deleveraging companies, individuals, and this, of course, is in contrast to the profligacy of the peripheral countries such as Spain, Italy and Portugal, which have built up debt dramatically. So we think Germany is just the beginning of a very dramatic period of recovery. It's interesting, in the past, the current account surplus that Germany has generated has tended to find its way into the emerging markets and countries such as Spain, the fast-growing countries. We think that money will now come back to Germany and will drive really very strong economic growth over the next few years. So just as a reminder, the core of Europe, Germany, France, Benelux, is fiscally strong. It's, we think, in the beginning of a period of very strong recovery, and is in complete contrast to the Anglo-Saxon countries and, of course, to the profligacy in southern Europe. So in our view, the power of Germany and France will be sufficient to keep the euro together, and we think the crisis will be solved pragmatically by a mixture of transfers and internal depreciations in the peripheral countries. Thank you very much.